it's cracked pretty much entirely in half. With all the parts cleaned and ready to go, it's time to start building this engine back up. The first job I'm going to do is swap out this lifting eye. As you can see, the old one is bent up, and although I probably could straighten it, it's just easier to swap it out for the other one. Next up is the distributor. This is one of several parts which I've already removed in previous years. This one's showing signs of an oil leak, so I'm going to strip it down and replace the seals inside. You can see here how it's driven off the camshaft via a dog clutch setup. To get to the seal, the shaft needs to come out, which first needs this roll pin knocking through. And with that washer out of the way, the shaft seal can now be removed, taking care not to damage the outer face. The new seal should be a nice snug fit, and to press it home fully I'm using the end of the shaft, working my way around the edge until it's seated evenly. With a little gentle pressure the shaft can be reinstalled, making sure that the new seal isn't damaged. The final seal is an O-ring which seals between the outer edge of the distributor and the cylinder head. And with that change, the dog clutch piece can now be reinstalled and secured again with the roll pin. It's important to get the clutch piece in the same position as before, otherwise the rotor arm will be 180 degrees out. The two ribs on the clutch piece are actually offset from the centre. This means that normally the distributor can only go on in one position, but of course if you've removed the roll pin you could fit the clutch piece the other way round, and this would then be wrong. When refitting, it helps to rotate the shaft until the two ribs locate. Next up is the rear crankshaft seal. They do have a habit of leaking with old age, so while I'm here I might as well swap this out for a new one. There's no easy way to get them out, so the method I use is to hammer a screwdriver through the thin metal part of the seal and then prise it out. It's important that the sealing faces are smooth, so care is needed when prising so as not to scratch or mark them. And after a quick clean, the new seal can then be hammered in. I'm using a soft face nylon hammer to avoid damaging the new seal. And working my way along, this oil sensor is next up. It's probably working fine, but I've got a new one, so I might as well change it now. Right, next up, exhaust manifold. This piece of rolled up newspaper is covering the hole for the dipstick, so I guess that's next. This just presses into the block with an interference fit. The fixing bracket at the top shares a bolt with this water pipe, so that has to go in next. And I'm sure some of you will have already spotted my mistake here. The larger water pipe picks up on the rearmost manifold stud, so that has to come off again. This is the cover which protects the camshaft pulley, and these large holes are isolated from the block using rubber grommets. Just wish it was that easy in real life. The front lifting eye is also bent, but only slightly, so I'll straighten that up in the vise. This rearguard piece wasn't too bad, so I've just cleaned it up. And with that fitted, the newly straightened lifting bracket can go back on. Followed by these two spacers and then the cover. These washer spacers centre the grommets onto the studs. And after a few more spacers, the cable protector can go on. There are actually supposed to be 4 nuts used here, 2 to secure the cover and then 2 more to hold the protector on. This allows it to be removed without disturbing the cover, but I could only manage to salvage 2, so those extra spacers will have to do. I would normally just put new ones on, but this seems to be an odd thread which I don't have. The nuts are actually 11mm, not 10. I will have to remove this later when it comes to wiring it up, so I'll just nip these up for now. This water pump is probably fine, but it makes sense to fit a new one at this stage. The impact driver helps here to remove the pulley bolts without it spinning. This piece fits to the back of the water pump where it overshoots from the side of the block, And I couldn't find a gasket for it, so I'm just using the silicone gasket sealant like I did on the sump. You only really get one chance with this stuff, and you don't want to have to move it around too much, so it's best to be firm and precise when reassembling. By screwing in the 2 bolts first, it helps to minimise any movement. Having remembered to fit the Jubilee clips first, I can now fit the 45-degree pipe which connects this piece to the lower steel pipe. The thermostat housing is next, and after cleaning off the remains of the old gasket I can put the new sealant on ready for the housing. These pipes are all okay and crack free, which is good because finding replacements really isn't that easy. A new thermostat is a must, especially if you can remember what the old one looked like. I was actually quite surprised just how well these aluminium parts came up. The only deep pitting was here on the end of the top piece, but as it hasn't gone through and it's past the line of the Jubilee clip, I'm sure it'll be fine. That wheeled engine stand is a blessing and a curse sometimes. I've had issues with these sensors failing in the past, so if it's available new, I'm going to replace it. It's probably not supposed to be 13/16, but the 20mm spanner seemed to go missing at this point, so it did the job. Both of these are actually water temperature sensors, one for the gauge on the dash and the other for the ECU. Again, I've remembered to fit the Jubilee clips first. I must be feeling ill at the moment. Right, I think that's long enough for this episode, so join me in part 4 when I finish building up the engine and take a look at something which I've been putting off for quite a while now. And if I'm honest, I've forgotten just how bad it is.